The long winter is over, and Todd and I are back on the Friday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We are sponsored by Fantrax. Appreciate their sponsorship this season. Great to be back on with you, Todd. It's been too long since we've caught up, man. I'm looking forward to just getting things rolling again and, talking a little baseball, just casual back and forth until, two-star pitchers, then things will have to get serious.
Well, Clay, what do you want to talk about?
I get that reference. I want to talk about Klubot.
All right.
Not really, but I do wish him the best. It's not every day a two-time Cy Young winner rides off into the sunset. So good for Kluber. But, not a ton of news recently. It's kind of weird that another two-time Cy Young winner, Blake Snell, still in the open market. It seems like kind of been waiting for this last wave of free agents. Scott Boras needs to figure something out.
Well, I mean, we can say that, but he's doing his job, and that's just to get the clients the best deals, and they all happen to be Scott Boras clients. So we're all, waiting with bated breath to see where Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell and Cody Bellinger signed, and then there'll be some residual effects afterwards. There's some trade chatter as we're talking. The Phillies are supposed to be talking about Kenley Jansen from the Red Sox, which would be interesting. I'm seeing people say that the Phillies have got four good arms at the end of their pen. I think you need to replace the word good with volatile, and not that Jansen is anything less than volatile at this stage of his career too, right? But
True.
What Oren Keckering is sort of the, I don't know, it's not the darling of the analysts, right? To see if he can, with that sweeper slider. Did Colette write our outlook on him? Probably it had Jason's tone to it about the. So I can, when I read our outlooks, and I know that Jason wrote, I read it in his voice. So, but anyway, talking about the most sweep of any sweeper in the league.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Kenley because right now we've done so much research and so much writing and player outlooks and whatnot, but the landscape can still drastically change over these next weeks and months. Like everything we think we know now may not be what the situation is like come opening day. And do you think Kenley is traded? And because, there's Kenley rumored and Devin Williams rumored. I'm kind of wondering who would be the next man up behind Kenley because Chris Martin's really good, but he's never really been a closer. 37 now, so I just don't know who the quote-unquote handcuff is there, if there is one.
Part of the whole, aura with the Red Sox are they just brought in Theo Epstein, maybe temporary, remains to be seen, but they're still in on Montgomery, in on Snell. They could still make trades, or they could trade Jansen and trade Duran. I mean, they're in the middle. They can still go in either a couple directions to find out what's going on there. So the Red Sox nation is incredibly frustrated at this point, but I got my 4 championships in my lifetime, so I'm good. But I can see where that's sort of worn off at this point. A couple of last place finishes with the ticket prices, etc. People want some results. It'll be interesting to see which direction the Red Sox go in over the next couple of weeks. I mean, that's what it's going to be at this point, is a couple of weeks. I got tickets to see him in spring training when we go out for labor in First Pitch, Florida. I'm not going to go to JetBlue, but I've got tickets on the Friday and the Monday surrounding the conference and labor, so I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Well, we got a old friend of the show in the chat, Uncle Ted. He mentioned Prelander Baroa. Great name. And he's looking like an option to close in the stripped-down White Sox bullpen. Definitely a name to know. Prelander Baroa. So
just got quiet in a trade.
Yeah, he was in the Gregory Santos deal.
Right.
Definitely a name to keep an eye on. We all love speculating on saves, and looking in that, I mentioned Devin Williams. I mean, Joel Payamps. It's really hard. In our first pitch Arizona Speakers draft, I did take a chance on Garrett Whitlock in that Boston bullpen as a spec. Saw he's already throwing down in Florida today, so getting an early start on things. Do you think Whitlock is in the bullpen to stay full time now?
Again, depending if the Red Sox sign Montgomery, there's a better chance that Whitlock is in the bullpen. I think he should be. I think he's proven better in the bullpen injury-wise, etc. And let Tanner Houck be of the two of them to try to become a starter. That would be my plan anyway. We shall see. You mentioned Joel Payamps. I spent the past week for my own site reviewing or profiling relievers. In the Brewers, they had 4 guys that kind of came out of nowhere. And not much nowhere, but I mean, they turned 4 meh guys into solid bullpen arms. Bobby Milner did it the year previous. Bryce Wilson, Payamps, and the fourth name is escaping me. Trevor McGill. So I mean, I don't think that's not a coincidence. I don't think they must be seeing something in these guys in previous teams, and we give Cleveland credit for doing this. We give Tampa credit. San Diego. I wonder if we don't think about pitching in Milwaukee because of the ballpark. I wonder if we need to start looking at some of these pitchers that Milwaukee picks up and put them in the same group. And I know Stearns is gone and Craig Counsell's gone, but it could go deeper than that as far as the organization goes. I know Ashby's not a pickup, but is he someone that maybe we should look at as a sleeper? D.L. Hall, who they just traded for. These guys are now, especially in a 50-team draft and hold, they're more on my radar than they may have been before I happened to notice those 4 relievers, doing really well last year.
Abner Uribe getting some love in the chat. That Brewers pitching lab absolutely is whatever they got going there is some serious magic they're working there. And DL Hall, they got in the Corbin Burns trade. They're looking to give him another chance to start. We'll see if it works, but they've kind of become the NL version of the Rays when you say. I guess the Dodgers are right there too, but whatever the Brewers are doing with their pitching staff just is working on all fronts.
Add Jacob Junis to the watch list.
Yeah, Jacob Junis. And that slider that is kind of his trademark. I wouldn't put it past the Brewers to turn him into something.
Right.
Well, Todd, our latest RotoWire Roundtable went up this week, and you, myself, Jeff Erickson, and Eric Halterman each ranking our top 350 players. And, it's kind of been like the number 2 spot has rotated throughout the offseason here, and now it's Julio Rodriguez, number 2. If you had the number 2 spot right now, are you taking Julio?
No. I don't want the number 2 spot because I want Kyle Tucker, and I can get him later. You know what? It's so easy to say these sort of things when you're not, not so much saddled, but you're not at the table and the clock's ticking. I've been ranking Kyle Tucker second all off season, and I would take him second. Like if I'm setting my KDS in an NFBC league, I'm not setting it second because I want to get Kyle Tucker at 4th, 5th, or 6th. There's a little bit of leap of faith here, but if he does exactly what he did the past couple of years, but he hits 2nd or 3rd in the order, he's warranting of that spot. And if he doesn't hit 2nd or 3rd, he's still a top 6. I think he was number 9 on our earned values last year. So I just think I don't know. I'm a numbers guy, but you like to make subjective choices like this as well. So that would be my number 2 guy, and he's been that way all year.
Yeah, I have Julio number 2, a slight edge over Bobby Witt, but I can see the case for either, and I can see your case for Tucker as well. I have Tucker 5th. Dusty Baker no longer with the team, and even Dusty was starting to come around to batting Tucker higher in the order. So
yeah, right.
I do think Tucker will finally kind of have that full, well-rounded production that we've always thought he could achieve.
You've got, all right, Altuve's leading off, right? The newly signed Jose Altuve. Jordan Alvarez seems best suited for the 4-hole cleanup. Then you got you got Bregman, and you've got Tucker. And at this point, I don't think you can have Jose Abreu in that conversation. I think he has to be further down. So it's the 2 or 3 spot, whether you play matchups, lefty, righty, whatever you want to put it, Tucker and Bregman. And there's a lot of Freddie Freeman, Aaron Judge. There's a lot of non-conventional. Maybe now those type of hitters are the conventional hitters, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
We're seeing Yanner Diaz. Uncle Ted says Diaz, yeah, but he's not going to move to the top 4. I don't think he should.
Yeah, that was just something that kind of held Tucker back in the past, was him batting strangely low in the lineup, but that seems to be a thing of the past.
Dusty Bakerly low. If it ain't broke, So.
Dusty Bakerly low. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll miss Dusty, but all the best to him. I was looking at the roundtable, and Todd, I was a little surprised to see you so low on JT Realmuto. Between myself, Jeff, and Eric, we're all in the 30 to 50 range. You're all 20. Yes, I kind of had it in my mind that you've been an advocate for Realmuto in the past and using that valuable draft capital to get a top catcher like that. But do you see pretty drastic signs of decline in Realmuto?
I don't think we need to see drastic. I just think we're seeing signs. And he's now at the age where we keep saying this, he's not going to run. Well, he ran last year. He lost some sprint speed, but he's just such a great base runner. In the new rules, he was able to take advantage. I think we may be losing some of that. The presently their batting order is so stacked. I think Realmuto is going to be moving down in the order a bit. He used to be second and third. I think he's now a 5th or 6th hitter. And some of it has to do, too, with some other catches just being better. It may not even be that I'm down on Realmuto as much as I am. I've got a couple guys that are pushing up a bit, and just the way the rankings flesh out, he just gets pushed down, I suppose. But I do think, is it a sign of wanting to be a year too? I always get this analogy wrong. Is it maybe that I want to be a year too early than a year too late, getting off the bandwagon? Yeah, I think there's some of that too. Like I said, if I want a catcher, William Contreras, Will Smith, there are players that I would take ahead of him. So that pushes him down as well.
I see where you're coming from. I'm not completely out, but maybe it is time to get out before things really crumble for him. I don't think it's going to be coming imminently, but you never know. All that wear and tear could add up and catch up to him in a hurry. One of the hot button players so far this draft season, Elly De La Cruz. We already had a De La Cruz mention in the chat. And our friend of the show, friend of the site, Derek Carty, had a tweet the other day about De La Cruz saying, according to his projection system, the BAT and the BAT-X, he is the most overrated player in drafts right now. So those projections throwing some cold water on Elly De La Cruz. I thought maybe he was going to say Yoshinobu Yamamoto because it didn't seem like his projection liked him too much. But De La Cruz is pretty polarizing right now. Surprisingly, you have him a little bit ahead of where I have him. Ton of upside, but man, there is that downside that he ends up back in the minors if things go poorly for him. Are you actually going to be willing to take that chance on De La Cruz push come to shove, Todd?
I drafted my first, I know this is not the answer you're looking for, but whatever. I drafted my first ever Dynasty League from scratch. I've inherited teams, etc., but I've never drafted one from scratch. And I took De La Cruz in the 2nd round.
Wow.
And, I think I got him, in a place where if it was a redraft, it was fair. But in a Dynasty League, I don't use the word fading, but other people, anytime, we can talk about this at some points because it's kind of a cool conversation. Anytime you do a startup Dynasty League, you decide what's your approach. Are you going to draft Wyatt Langford in the first couple rounds, or are you not? Are you going to draft De La Cruz and the Colorado outfielder? Why am I blanking? Because I'm getting old.
From
Cleveland.
No, I know who you're talking. Nolan Jones.
So you're going to draft like jump up these guys maybe half a round from the regular ADP in a dynasty league, or you're going to draft Wyatt Langford, or you're going to draft some of the up and coming, Jackson Holiday. So I opted to go for the young route. But as far as he breaks a conventional projection system, and I know not everybody uses conventional projection systems, but his MLE translation was just so darn good, and it didn't help that he hit really well when he came up, because you didn't have like bad numbers to bring him down. So if you're using formulaic translations, MLEs, etc., you're overriding. It's just how much are you going to override? And then you talk about the playing time. And yes, you have to factor in he gets cold. The Reds have got a bunch of different movable parts, and De La Cruz is sent back down. I have factored that in, I believe, to my playing time, and the numbers are where they are, and the multiple position eligibility helps them a little bit. Is it a surprise that I'm ahead of this group because I'm usually behind? I think so, but I like enough of what I saw. The strikeouts, I think they're fixable. I not even so much fixable. I just think more reps and he gets better. Some people, it has to be fixable. You're chasing, or you're doing something, you can't catch up to heat or whatever it might be, or you're fooled by breakers. I think his strikeouts are just more reps, and I think he'll get them.
Yeah, I don't see myself ending up with him, just with the way things ended last year for him, the way they were trending.
Yeah,
it got pretty ugly with De La Cruz, but that's not to say he can't, improve quickly. It's just an incredibly tough game, and there's some holes in that swing at the moment. So I think there will always be somebody in the room who, even as a Reds fan, likes him just a little bit more than me. I was looking at that depth chart today, just a lot of fun. I actually kind of forgot that they'd signed Frankie Montas too. I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of fun.
When doing profiles, I found a certain, class of player that I didn't realize existed, and I kind of wrote a little bit about this in the Z Files a while back. But one of the things, when you think of people striking out a lot at that age, you think they chase. De La Cruz doesn't chase. He makes terrible contact on the pitches he does chase. I mean, below average contact on those in which he does chase. So it's like, Ellie, you don't chase too much. You don't have to worry about that. But dude, hit the ones you do chase better. That's kind of weird to think. And he's not all that aggressive within the zone. He could be, this is so easy for me to say on a Friday afternoon in February. One of the best players in the world has to swing at more strikes, Easy for me to say. But if he was a little more aggressive, and isn't that just pitch recognition and confidence maybe? So I think maybe that's what it was, is I see the pathways to improve the strikeouts, and I'm a little bit betting on the come that he gets there.
Well, let me pause real quick. We'll get back to the roundtable momentarily, but I want to bring you a quick word from our sponsors at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Coming from another service, Fantrax makes it easy. Fantrax can import any of your current leagues and customize if needed. Fantrax offers the most in-depth player pool in the industry, including minor league players. Do you need a customizable commissioner service for your fantasy league? Fantrax offers more customization than any other platform: waivers, categories, scoring system, schedule. Fantrax offers custom solutions for all that and more, and it's all free. Sign up for free today and be entered to win an official MLB signed jersey from MLB The Show cover boy Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Simply go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/RotoWire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. Well, one player who I wanted to mention that's on the rise, Todd, is Edouard Julien. A guy who, with Jorge Polanco traded to Seattle, suddenly becomes freed up in a sense. So Minnesota, I don't think what their offseason has, caught a ton of headlines, but kind of like what they've done, quietly. So now Edouard Julien, I think most people expected him to play a little bit, maybe a fair amount, but do you think now he's in line for an everyday role?
I think the amount of extra playing time is being overblown a little bit. I think he needed to feel he was going to play against all right-handed pitching anyway. And part of that is it would free that up. I think Byron Buxton being able to play center is more important for his playing time, Julian's, than the trade of Polanco. Because that now, if Buxton can play center, there's some time at DH. And at this point, DH may be Julian's best position, unfortunately. On the other hand, you got Kyle Farmer. You've got right-handed platoon options, but they're not good enough that I think you need to give Julian some reps against lefties. With such great discipline against right-handed pitching, you got to think that would at some point translate to same side pitching. And he may not be as proficient against lefties as he is righties, but you got to figure he's got to improve. And Julian, is it Julian? Because I'm
looking at Baseball Reference. Okay. I was to confirm myself. It is. It says here Julien.
Okay, good. All right,
Edouard Julien.
Because I plan on saying his name a lot.
So, he's going to be a hot player this spring. I think.
So if he gets a little bit better against lefties, the numbers can just go through the roof. OBP leagues, points leagues, he's already there. So I think more the Polanco trade, it frees up the ability to play against more lefties. So I think in that regard, but I don't think he goes from I didn't care about him until I now care about him. I think you should have cared about him heading in.
We had a comment on the roundtable about James Outman, and I thought it was kind of interesting because with all that the Dodgers have done already this offseason, Outman just kind of fades into the background or just doesn't really, garner much attention. I don't know. He was off to such a great start early on, then he kind of faded, then he surged back, and 23 homers in the end, 16 steals, 248 average. What are your general thoughts on Outman coming off that season?
I'm pretty high on him, and he has a lot of the same traits that we just talked about as far as chasing and not really chasing, but not making contact within the zone. He is left-handed, and the Dodgers are deep. Right now, Chris Taylor doesn't have a set spot, so there's potential of some platooning. Outman started the platoon last year, but he pretty much took the job outright, center field, and played 151 games. So I think that's the plan coming into this year. That loaded lineup, he's hitting the bottom third, which you don't love, but it's that lineup, right? Mm. He gets on base hitting seventh or eighth, and who's going to knock him in? Mookie and Freddie and Shohei, So he's going to still score runs down at the bottom, and the Dodgers to score enough runs that he gets a decent amount of plate appearance. And you're not paying, third in the lineup cost for Outman. You're paying a commensurate with being drafted. So I like, and I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Halterman and I talk about this tomorrow. We may or may not have recorded our Saturday show already, and because we talked the same way we're here, is he was a big name on the top 300. I'm not paying for the upside, but I don't think you have to, and the upside's there. So I don't like to chase upside. At that point of the draft, I don't mind chasing it. But to me, he's kind of the guy that you pay market price, but there's some upside there.
Well, last spring, Todd, you were the outspoken Vaughn Grissom guy, at least until Atlanta RC. I'm just giving you some flack. We all I know. We don't bat 1,000. None of us do. But look, once Arcia took the job, it was obvious that Grissom wasn't the guy. Now he's got a fresh start with your Red Sox. I saw you took him in the first pitch Arizona Speakers draft. Do you find yourself? Actually, you took him over Julien. Now that I look at it, that was probably before the Polanco trade. But do you see yourself loading up on Vaughn Grissom this spring?
I don't know about loading up. I'm not planning my roster around getting Grissom, but I do think I'm ahead of the market a little bit. And I mean, it's not like I jumped him up the ranks where I drafted him either in the Speakers League. And part of why I took him over Julien is because Grissom should be getting second base shortstop eligibility. Now, NFBC, it takes 10 days, rule book definition, 5 games. but still, out of my, especially in a draft and hold situation like this league was, I like my middle and my corner to have eligibility at either spot, or I like one of my middles and corners to have dual. I could be drafting somebody who's got dual eligibility early, as my starter at some point, just because it really, the more multiple eligibility guys you get, the more pitchers you can afford to sneak onto your roster. And this, I don't know where the pitchers went, but every time I went to make my pick, there were fewer pitch. I mean, I used to want to keep going in these drafts because there were more pitchers I wanted to draft. Now it's like if I had, lost contact with the draft at round 40, I wouldn't have cared. Maybe that's on me for not knowing the pool better. But anyway, point being, yes, I'm on Grissom. It's a little bit betting on the come in that the contact rate, I don't need him to put it over the wall. I just need him to hit a bunch of balls off that wall and run a little bit. And I think he's going to be here more narrative. I think he's going to be attached to Dustin Pedroia during the spring. And I think his defense, I know Ron Washington's the best infield guru, and Wash didn't seem to think that Grissom could cut it. I'd like to see what he can do hanging out with Pedroia for a while.
I'm right there with you as far as pitching drying up in this 15-team league. I mean, after I filled even before I filled my 9 active spots, I was kind of like, man, where am I going to go here? My reserves in that first pitch speakers league, Brian Abreu is my first reserve. I like him. But then, Graham Ashcraft, Anthony DeSclafani, Hayden Wesneski, Michael Lorenzen, Ross Stripling. It gets pretty hairy. Pretty hairy.
Our friend Jeff Zimmerman, who won this league a couple years, I'm misquoting, sorry, Jeff, if I am, but he says any pitcher you take in round 40 is a waste. Anytime he would do one of these drafts, it would be all yellow in round 30, because after that, they weren't going to play.
Mm-hmm. Well, one guy who I saw you take in that league, and if you see the roundtable, I mean, your rank really stands out on Bailey Ober. You have been a Bailey Ober supporter for a while, but it seems like you've kind of gone all in on him this year. Is that the case, or are you still willing to play chicken with him in drafts?
I'm not willing to. Well, this is going to sound dumb, but I did a couple drafts that our friend and colleague Perry Van Hook organized, and as you can guess, there were a lot of people that subscribed to my site in those drafts. So I couldn't play chicken because people knew who I wanted, and they like him too. So I'm gonna. I don't understand. I'm at the point now. Sometimes I'm ahead of people, and it's like maybe I'm wrong. With Ober, I'm like, why aren't people up with me? Why aren't people agreeing with me at this point? At least closer to where I am. He's an SP3 for me, and I think that's where I got him in the speakers draft. I'm not going to jump him in as my second starter, but if I can get him as my third or fourth, I'll take it all day. The Twins thought so highly of Ober down the stretch last year that they sent him down to start Dallas Keuchel, which was
right.
And not only that, I know Louis Varland wasn't great, it wasn't perfect, but they were starting Keuchel over Louis Varland, and I didn't get that. But I think Ober's got a spot in the rotation. All right, he's tall. The repeatability of the delivery is a little bit questionable. He's not overpowering. But all he's done at every level, including the pros, is strike a lot of guys out and not give up walks. And I'm being asked now about home run issues. If you're striking guys out and not giving up walks, I'll take the homers. Target field's hard to hit home runs in. So I will. All right, I'm not comparing him to Kurt Schilling, pitching style anyway, but that Schilling would win a lot of games, 4-3 and give up 3 single homers. That's just the way it was. So do I love the home run issues? No, but I will take a fly ball pitcher in a park of that nature, because the fly balls, especially if Byron Buxton is healthy, the fly balls will be caught. Yeah,
I'm a little skeptical about Buxton returning to center field.
I am too.
Yeah, we'll see if it happens.
At least full time.
Yeah, full time seems like a little bit of a stretch. One guy who surged last year, now being drafted inside the top 100, Kyle Bradish of the Baltimore Orioles. You're the low man on him on the round table, not dramatically low on him, but he's going to be one of the tougher guys because he seems like after that, he's kind of at a tier break after, at least in my opinion, after the Logan Gilberts, Eflins, Peraltas of the world. Seems like people are willing to push him up into that next tier. I don't hate it, but I think I'd rather have a guy like Cody Senga. I don't know. I don't really see myself paying that price. I don't know on Bradish, even though I'm technically the high man on him among these four.
I think and I talked about this when I wrote about the roundtable. If you look at my raw rank, you're going to find that I'm lower on a lot of pitchers. But if you look among the pitchers, I'm ranking pitchers a little lower in general. But if you just look at the group of starting pitchers, I think we may have Bradish ranked like our 18th starter, our 16th starter. We may be closer than if we just look at the raw ranks. All right. Acquiring Corbin Burns. All right. So the second game of the year, Bradish faces the number 2. That evens out very quickly. And I hear people say, well, now Bradish gets to match up against a lesser pitcher. That evens out real quick. So to me, that's really much of a consideration. To me, what's a little odd is I'm higher on pitchers that Logan Webb, Aaron Nola, that I trust their ratios, but they don't get the strikeouts. NFBC loves strikeouts. They just push strikeouts up. And rightfully so, I must say. So Bradish is the kind of guy that I normally would be higher on just because he doesn't get the strikeouts, but he trusts the ratios. So, but I think when you're saying he's at the point where all the strikeout guys are gone, so now people start looking for ratio guys, which may be why Bradish is there. Bradish is there. Although you said Senga. Senga's a strikeout guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'd probably push up the guy who gets the Ks. Although, yeah, Bradish was really good last year, and I believe in the skills. It's just I think I'd rather supplement the Ks at that stage.
I think a lot of people, and maybe this is right too, or the right approach. I think they want to see it one more year out of Bradish. The Missouri, show me one more time. He kind of did it the previous year, but if you're going to trust a guy without the dominance, and he doesn't walk anybody, which is fine, but if you're going to trust a guy without the dominance, you want to see it one more year, because a lot of times they defeat their peripherals until they don't. And we're learning more and more. Nick Pollock, Pitcher List, is giving us a lot of great stuff to look at. That part of that was we didn't know what to look at before. Now we know why they're beating their peripherals, and we can trust them a little bit earlier. I think Bradish is still some skepticism as far as, do I want to draft a guy that high who's only done it for 1 year, and some people think he was lucky.
One guy that you're relatively high on here in the roundtable, and I'm a little surprised to see it, Evan Carter of Texas. We saw him, have that great run in the postseason. Only 21 years old. Man, it's pretty crazy what he did at 20 last year. Do your translations, are they really glowing for Carter, or is there something else?
He's another guy that broke the system, and you have to just calm him down. And it's how far are we going to calm him down? Another lefty hitter, cruising my profile really quick. I don't know. I think part of what I see with Carter is he can run, but he didn't run a lot last year. And I know Texas, they didn't run a lot, but they didn't have to, because they were so fortuitous with runners on scoring position, batting average runners in scoring position. I think they're just organically going to score fewer runs, so I think they may run a little bit more. And now, I was just about to say it. We're seeing the note about Carter hitting lefties. I just think it's someone that needs more reps, and I think he plays good enough defense, and Texas's lineup is such that I think you need to see if Carter can learn to hit. The only way you learn to hit lefties better is by doing it. You don't learn at AAA. That's not a skill I don't think you can learn at AAA, because I think you can handle AAA lefties and then it's a whole new ball game. I think Carter's talent is such that you need to see if he can do it. I think we were saying a lot of the things about Corbin Carroll. I think a lot of people are going to be comparing Carter to Carroll. Why am I talking so fast? I don't know.
Hey, I'm excited
I'm
too.
excited. I'm excited.
Baseball season.
Yeah. I think I don't have caffeine. I don't do caffeine. Anyway, natural high. I think a lot of people are going to be comparing Carter to Carroll in a lot of different. I don't know if it's a just comparison, but they're kind of similar. Lefties and coming up, hot prospects. I do see some. I see pathways for Carter to improve his deficiencies.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And yeah, he's a very interesting young player. By the way, Corey Seager with that sports hernia surgery. We'll see if he's ready for opening day. That's the hope. But yeah, it seems like not a sure thing that he'll be ready to go right away. So some more health troubles for Seager.
Right. Now, one should have already had some injury concerns with Seager.
Oh, yeah.
So
Totally.
this is kind of with Walker Buehler in that I'm seeing people, I'm dropping him down. If you're dropping Seager and you're dropping Buehler down your rankings significantly, a little bit short, you probably didn't bake in enough injury risk coming into the season. I mean, Seager, he's just so darn good. We forget about the fact he played like half a year last year. All right, he played within that half a year. He had a season's worth of numbers for more than half the league, but he has injury concerns. Corey Seager. I think I had him for 138 games coming in. So all right, you know what? I'm going to leave him here, and if things look worse in the spring, I'll drop him. But I thought 138 kind of accounted for being a little bit missing the first couple weeks. And Buehler, I had him for like 22 or 24 starts anyway. So I didn't feel the need to drop him based on this news. I just felt that the Dodgers were going to give him time off. I didn't know if it was April or around the All-Star break or whatever. So I didn't really drop Buehler. But again, if it looks something going on, I'll drop him more.
Yeah, they are pretty much already saying he's not going to be ready to go on opening day. So we'll see what their plan is to manage Buehler coming off Tommy John. One guy who's a tough rank this year, you and I actually real close on him, though, in the roundtable, only 2 spots apart, on Xander Bogaerts. We were doing the first pitch speakers draft. I took him. I kind of had some instant remorse when I took Bogaerts in the 7th round. But then I talked myself back into it because, man, he really could not have been any more unlucky when it comes to hitting with runners on base and scoring position last year. It was just weirdly fluky, that RBI total, and, first player in a new play, or first year in a new place off the big contract. Am I kind of just talking myself into it, or am I on the right path here with Bogaerts?
I think we've seen Bogaerts' floor. I don't think he's going to get worse than he was. And I do think there's pathways to get better. His line drive rate was very low. And I think that just organically going to get better. Maybe this is from seeing him more than number scouting, StatCast, etc. But his hard hit rate has never been very good. But he's got such great plate coverage. He would just, serve the ball, serve little, humpback liners into right field, and hit better than his peripherals. I don't know, and then turn on the inside fastball and put it over the wall. Petco Park's different. I think Bogaerts just needs to get a little bit more confident, just be himself in that park, and I think we'll see improvements. Maybe he runs a little more. Who knows? With San Diego at this point, new manager, we'll see what they do. He can run a little more. I like the fact they're talking about a potential position change for him. Although the fact they're talking about second base and not third or first, I don't. Maybe you can hide the deficiencies better at second. I don't know. But Hyun-Soo Kim is a better fielder right now and should be at shortstop. But I like Bogaerts. Where I like him at his market price. I'm not chasing him, but I think you did fine. I think he's fine at his market price. And one of the things about the shortstop, I don't know how many drafts you've done, it is so strong at the top, but compared to the past couple of years, it's not as deep as it's been. So Bogaerts is in that Dansby Swanson tier where, you know what, you better get him because you're not going to like some of the choices later. If you happen to, shortstop's deep, I don't need one of the top guys. it's not as deep as it's been in the past couple of years, and that's weird to say because it's shortstop, but
Yeah.
which is never deep, but it has been deep lately.
I was a little surprised how much the Bad X liked Swanson, although not, I wasn't completely floored, but, Bad X drops. That's going to shake up the market a little bit, and it seems like, right now, Swanson's a pretty nice target until inevitably that price ticks up. Well, Todd, really appreciate your work on the roundtable, and definitely check that out. I ask that you, support that. Also, we have ATC projections now on the site if you want another perspective on the player pool. I want to kind of broaden our discussion to end this thing and just kind of talk about some more general topics. Like, I guess I'm wondering at this stage, it's still, I think we're about 2/3 of the way through the off season. You and I have done a lot of writing, a lot of research. What's your current stage? Like, what are you doing now? Is the next step in your prep for 2024?
I am just about wrapping up. I kind of alluded to them earlier. My own site profiles. I write them for RotoWire. I do some stuff for ESPN, and I have to fill in and do my own stuff. I'm just about done with those. I've done very little drafting. I've done the Speakers League. I've done a couple of Perry Van Hooks leagues, and right now that's about it. I need to start. I mean, just for my own fun, this is what I like. Underdog, some of the best balls is next up on the agenda. Some cut lines, some draft champions. I don't do as much high stakes anymore. I'm going to do the RotoWire online, but I don't do the really high stakes anymore. TGFBI and Nerf are really important to me, and those are coming up. I know you obviously do TGFBI. Are you in any of the Earth leagues?
No, I was considering that, but couldn't make the trip to Chicago the year that it was launching, I think.
For people that aren't unaware, there's a series of industry leagues, not just industry, just anybody who wants to join in the area. It started out BARF, Bay Area Rotisserie Fantasy, with Lar Michaels making up the name. Eno was in the league, and a lot of San Francisco Bay Area people. Next came New England Rotisserie Fantasy, and the trophy was named after Lar Michaels, our friend Chris Marr, Baseball Pods. I wonder if he'll actually mention this pod. He doesn't mention my pods. Maybe now that I'm actually talking about Chris, that he'll review this pod. Chris, Baseball Pods, Chris Marr, our mayor. So anyway, the point being, the New England Rotisserie, I won the league the first year we had the trophy. I was kind of happy about that. And that draft is coming up in a couple weeks. Our Eric Halterman colleague is headed to Glarf this weekend, the Great Lakes area Rotisserie Fantasy.
Oh, cool.
They're all over the place. But anyway, so yeah, as far as my own work goes, now's the time where I need to start thinking of different, topics to help people win their leagues down the stretch. And with so much good work out there, it's becoming more difficult to be unique, to stay, to write unicorn type material. But I'll think of some. I got a piece coming out over the weekend for RotoWire where we talk a lot about park factors, and this was emanated from Corbin Burns going from Milwaukee to Baltimore, and how much will the division change him. So I've got a piece. I'm actually quantifying the division change in terms of ERA. What would his ERA have been, not from the park, but from the opponents that he faced in Milwaukee versus Baltimore? Spoiler alert: the park has a bigger effect, but that should be coming up sometime over the weekend. So more drafts, especially draft and hold. I've used this joke ad nauseum. My two favorite things: drafting and doing nothing. And then getting ready for they're coming to get me again. Maybe
we got the first alarms of the new season.
No, I've been hitting mute a lot, so that was the first one that actually when I was talking. What do you what does Clay Link up to as far as prep and play goes?
Well, actually, just so happens that today is a big deadline day for one of our projects here, so I'm looking forward to that being behind us. And now, I have a pretty good idea of who I like in the pool. Now it's trying to figure out, it's battle testing and trying to figure out how the pieces come together, how to make the pieces fit. I also think it's and you may disagree with me on this. I think it's important to learn the market. And, I have my stuff. Some people say, don't pay attention to it. But I think part of the game is kind of leveraging the market and, obviously finding out who you like more than normal and trying to plot things out. I like to be flexible in drafts, but I think you want to have a good idea of how the pieces will fit and, who you can wait on teardrops at certain positions and, the best way to make the pieces come together, not just who you like, straight down a list.
No, for sure. And you kind of alluded to ADP chicken before. I think it was with Ober. You don't want to do a whole draft. I know I can get this guy then, I can get that guy then, and because sometimes if it doesn't work out, but absolutely you need to know the market or at least have an idea of it. And now, a lot of our stuff is NFBC. Unfortunately, there is the NFBC ADP. So that's there. Home leagues, non-NFBC leagues, it's a little more difficult. But, opinions are opinions. And you usually can get a good feel for it if you don't happen to play high stakes. You can get a good feel for your home league, how they're going to treat things. At least enough that on a couple of 3 players, you can get it at a discounted price or a discounted round.
Yeah, for sure. I just think it's, it's a game of putting the pieces together. It's not just, the player evaluations. It's always a moving target, of course. So, it's a puzzle that is extremely tough and complex to put together, and we're all trying to gain an edge, and it's becoming tougher and tougher to find that edge as the fantasy baseball public becomes smarter and smarter. I was also looking at some drafts from last year, Todd, and I got to tell you, just doing some self-evaluation, especially in the 15-team leagues. The 12-teamers are easier, of course, but 15-team leagues, man, my reserve picks in recent years have not been so hot. I think that's the case for a lot of people in the end game. Your picks are not going to pan out a lot of the time, but I want to be able to hit on more of those guys late to supplement my team.
Yeah, we didn't get to do it this year. I think I talked about a league that I'd been in with Derek Van Riper, our friend and colleague, in the past. And one of the things we would do is we'd go over last year's team. And, it was a funny afternoon every year. It's just like, what were we thinking?
Yeah, I do that too. It's like, what the hell
were we thinking? Now, this league didn't draft this year. We kind of missed it. But, even so. But no, so I know exactly what you mean. It's like, at the time, you thought you were winning the league with that 17th round pick.
Yeah, I thought I was had the secret sauce, with that one guy.
So one thing we have to keep in mind is it's not like every other person in the league is crushing those picks.
Exactly.
But if you get 2 or 3 more than everybody else, then that's it.
If you just get a couple that hit, it's huge for your team.
We were talking about how we felt about the pitching pool in our Arizona Fall Leagues league. Well, everybody's looking at the same players. It's not like I'm not drafting any pitchers that are good. No one is. So we do have to keep that in mind. And I do believe Jeff Zimmerman's advice in that don't wait on, take Yellow Brick Road in round 30. Get your comfortable, maybe take chances in the 40s, but get what you feel is your best pitchers done by round 39 because they're just not going to be there. But and I don't want to say I want to say I'm not going to say I'm glad Jeff's not in the league. I would love being in a league with Jeff because he's such a smart and what's Zimmerman doing in this draft? But I haven't done well in this draft, so I'm kind of glad Jeff's not in it. It gives me a little better chance.
Yeah, he always whips me in leagues, and the guy's just a machine.
I did beat him in a RotoWire Online Championship last year, which was kind of
really?
Yeah.
Nice. Shout out to Jeff and Tanner and the process. They know their stuff, that's for sure. Yeah, I've just over the years, with evaluating my own team and evaluating the best of the best, it does seem like the really good players they have the guys they like in the end game, and they hit on a few. And as well as I think I know the pool, it's very hard to do in the late rounds of the reserve rounds of a 15-team league. Looking at the guys I drafted in that recent draft, Matt Vierling.
I like that. I do.
You do?
Oh, absolutely. I like that a lot.
I mean, he's got dual eligibility, which is nice.
We're going to talk about him on the MLB Network radio show tomorrow. He's one of my, we called him sleeper, but it's more of the outside of the top 50 that you like, and Vierling was in there for me.
Well, that's reassuring to hear, because I feel like that's when I could look back on and say, what was I thinking? Mason Wynn could fit that mold. We'll see. Rowdy Tellez, Pete Crow Armstrong. I guess I just need to figure out who those guys are, because the draft, filling your active spots is kind of something I'm used to with that dance, but then having those guys late and having your preferences there, I think is really key, and something I need to do a better job of. Instead of just kind of, I'll take a shot on this guy. Well, actually having targets in those reserve rounds.
Yeah, in the draft and hold, it's not like, all right, if Crow Armstrong gets sent down, I'll just replace him. I don't want to say stuck with him, but you got Luis Matos like 4 or 5 rounds later, and since this draft, I believe who knows if it's going to come to fruition, but Matos is supposed to be the starter. Of course, you got Akil Baddoo several rounds later, and since the draft, he's probably going to start at AAA. So it goes both ways, right? That's a draft and hold for you, yeah. No, exactly. I mean, some of the guys I like as far as draft and hold, I don't mind the platoon type players, because I think that you can use. I didn't get a ton of them in this particular draft, but those are especially in the outfield, Jock Peterson, players like that, where you can use maybe once a week, because there's 3 righties in a transaction period. I didn't happen to get a lot of those in this particular draft, but those are the kind of guys, Mike Yastrzemski, those are the kind of guys I look for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, now it's, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on the top of the pool. Now I got to find my preferences late, which is a lot easier said than done. One guy who I did not expect to end up with in this draft was TJ Friedel. I've always been the low man on him, but and it does seem pretty clear that he overperformed his power numbers last year. But I needed some speed, and I needed an outfielder. I only had George Springer at that point, so 12th round I took the plunge on Friedel, but I don't expect to be doing that very often.
I think we talked about it maybe on the radio or podcast earlier in the year, but you took Shohei. I mean, we didn't talk about this, but we talked about Shohei Ohtani for the roundtable. You took him 12th, and to me, there's some. I mean, he could be number 5, so there's definitely reward. But clogging UT that early, is he going to get 10 games in the outfield? Maybe, but not early enough that it should make a big difference. I think there's a lot of, enough, and Eric Halterman from the Roundtable, sort of the lead voice on the risk for Ohtani, wrote a piece on it. To me, that's Juan Soto 2 picks later. I would prefer that, to be honest.
I'm a little surprised to see the general drafting public so low on Ohtani. That injury didn't seem to affect his hitting much last year. Maybe it's, in part because, you don't have that option to deploy him as a pitcher this year. But I've kind of been treating him as a hitter in my mind for years now. So,
well, it's the rehabbing the injury while hitting. I don't think it's so much affecting him, but he's still rehabbing to pitch again. And I think that's the bigger concern.
That's true.
And as Eric points out, credit where credit's due, Ohtani and others are a little slow out of the box after this rehabbing from this injury, Tommy John. So I think there's risk, but we all know that if none of this matters, he could be the 5th best player, the 6th best player. You don't usually get upside from the 12th pick. There's upside there.
And he's also kind of, well, I guess Jose Ramirez, but I felt like he was kind of the last guy who was really going to run a lot. I mean, Ramirez should run enough too, but
yeah.
Judge, Harper, Jordan, I just felt like, okay, yeah, he's plugging up the UT, but I really like to get a speed base early, and I probably didn't add enough speed there. But
you mentioned Harper. Now I'm thinking, remember one of the things with Harper early when he came back is he couldn't slide because the slide could disrupt this, could hurt the elbow. Maybe it's a different elbow and the way you slide may be different, but I wonder if that's going to come into play with Ohtani and that he can't slide because afraid of, at least early. I mean, Harper was over time, Harper was fine, but early on, I wonder if that's going to matter. And, as far as running goes, do you need Ohtani to run as much with the Dodgers? I think but it didn't stop Freeman.
Yeah,
it didn't stop.
It's kind of part of his game,
Yeah, so I think that's less of an argument because I think maybe that's why the lineup is so good is because Dave Roberts lets them do what they're good at.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to continue talking through this in the weeks and months to come. Every Friday, the podcast is back full steam ahead, 7 days a week. So, shout out to James for keeping the lights on in the off season, and thanks for all the work you've done, kind of behind the scenes with pumping out a lot of copy and a lot of great analysis that you may not have your name attached to, on the site, but a lot of outlooks, a lot of great work. So thanks for all you're doing, and can't wait to talk again next week, Todd.
Yeah, I'm not going away for a few more weeks. I'm going to be in Florida for a week. We'll have to find a replacement.
Right.
But we got a couple more weeks of this. What do you want to talk about stuff going on? We'll be good. We'll hopefully within the next couple weeks we'll be talking about these moves that we didn't talk about today.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see you down up in Times Square in a few weeks, and I can't wait for this draft season. We're gonna do it big, and hope you'll join us for the ride. We'll be doing this every Friday until, October?
Until they tell us not. Until they tell us not to do it anymore.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for your insight, Todd. Thanks for all for hanging out with us, and hope you'll join us next week on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by Fantrax.